In this episode of Property Journal, I'm talking to Grant Bovey, a businessman and forward-thinking entrepreneur who went from CEO of Imagine Homes and personally worth a staggering £600 million to the point of being declared bankrupt. Not a man to stay down, he has an incredible story and now has a very exciting new venture, unlocking hassle-free real estate investment for Web3. I can't wait to talk to Grant. Grant, welcome.
Thank you.
Who is Grant Bovey?
Oh my God, that's a big question. Grant Bovey is a boy that was raised in Nottingham, very ordinary upbringing, and always knew that I had ambition. So at the age of 22, I moved to London. Didn't really know why, didn't know what I was going to do. Rented a very dingy flat in Hammersmith and actually sold double glazing for a couple of months. Met a guy who was opening a record shop, and I had retail experience, so I went to help him. He owned a company called Brave World that was a film acquisition company. He gave me a job. I had no experience in the sector. He then made me sales director. I was then flying around the world buying film rights for the UK. Biggest film I bought was Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Remember it well.
This guy called Warren Goldberg, who very sadly died a few months ago, also had a video label and was making programs for video release. I started getting busy on that. I then left and formed a company called Watershed Pictures and started making television programs. Had no experience in that either. Got to work exclusively with the English Football Association. I controlled all of their moving picture image rights. Got to work with Nigel Mansell for 7 years in Formula One, controlling his global television rights. That company went from strength to strength, ended up selling it. And then my personal life was changing. I then obviously married Anthea, and I was involved in a property transaction in Dubai with a company called Emaar, who are one of the biggest builders there. And I was buying 12 villas that I was going to then put into the short-term rental market. And for whatever reason, it went horribly wrong. I'd spent a bit of money and 3 weeks in Dubai trying to put this deal together. It went horribly wrong. And I was on the plane going home, thoroughly annoyed with everything that had happened. And I thought, right, what are we going to do? I thought, I know what I'm going to do. We're going to come up with a new way of selling investment property in the UK. And I sat there, I remember it very vividly, sat there with a pencil and a bit of paper, and I dreamt up what then became the Imagine Homes model, which was basically, how can I make it really simple for the man in the street to buy an investment property? You know, I'm going to find it, I'm going to furnish it, I'm going to rent it, and I'm going to give you a 2-year rental guarantee to take all the pressure away. So this mad idea was formulated.
How old are you at this point?
Oh my God, I must have been about 42. So I then went home and, you know, I remember walking through the door, you know, to Auntie and saying, look, I've come up with this amazing idea. She said, okay, so you've got no experience in property, but now you've become an expert overnight. So I then started talking to banks to see if they'd lend me the money. I'd found a block of property that I wanted to buy. It was in a place called Kew Riverside, owned by Berkeley Homes. It was 13 million quid, not loose change. So I went to banks to see if they'd lend me the money. And John, you won't be surprised to hear, everyone said no until I met a lady called Susan Geddes at HBOS. And I went to see her and I pitched the concept. It was basically just clever marketing, basically. And she liked it. And she said, okay, we're going to help you with this. We understand it, but you've got to put £500,000 in. We'll lend you the 12.5. You've got to put £500,000 in, which I didn't have. So I went home and I said, look, we can do this, but we need £500,000, and the only way I could do that was to hock the house. So Anthea actually agreed to it, which in hindsight was bonkers. I then spoke to my bank. They lent me the £500,000. I put it into it. HBOS lent me the balance. We bought this block of property for 13 million. We applied the Imagine Homes marketing strategy. This is going to be so simple, and we guarantee this, and we do this. And we sold every one in about 10 weeks.
So the model was proven.
The model was proven. And what was interesting, the only reason I bought the block at 13 million, I was buying it at about a 23% discount, was because Barclays couldn't sell it. So the only reason they sold it to me, they couldn't sell it.
So what year was this? Do you remember?
About 2000.
Okay.
About 2000. So, you know, I took something that Barclay Homes, and let's be fair, they're very good at what they do, couldn't sell, applied the Imagine Homes logic, took out page advertisements in the property section in the Mail on Sunday, sold it, made £1 million, gave my bank back the £500,000 they lent me, went back to HBOS. I said, oh, I found another block now. This one's 32 million. And they said, fine, we'll lend you all of that. They lent me 100%.
Because you've got a track record now.
Got a track record. It was proven. And then Imagine Homes just went through this incredible growth curve over an 8 or 9 year period with the same philosophy. You know, they just make it simple, attract people into the space that wouldn't already do it because they're too risk averse. And it proved every single development we bought, we sold. We sold. It was an incredible,
powerful brand.
It was a very powerful brand, and the growth of it surprised people. I always remember just an anecdotal story. I was operating out of offices at Kew Riverside, a penthouse apartment. So that was the headquarters for Imagine Homes, and obviously we were growing. And I realised that I needed a prestigious office because my philosophy was, if people came to see me, they had to think I could afford their £50 million block of property. So I secured some offices at Farnborough Airport in a Norman Foster building. You know, Farnborough Airport is a business jet hub, very nice offices. And it was 12,000 square feet. And the lady was showing me around and she said, oh, Mr. Bovey, you know, she understood a little bit about Imagine Homes. And she said, oh, how many people do you employ? And I said, 5. And she said, oh, wow, you employ 500 people. And I said, no, 5. She said, but Mr. Bovey, this is 12,000 square feet. I said, I know, it's fine. And 6 months later, we ran out of space. Wow. Yeah, because I knew it worked. Yeah. I knew it worked. And we just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And the biggest deal I did was for 162 million, which I bought a tower in Canary Wharf. And yeah, I remember vividly that day when I had to sign on the dotted line and my hand, hand was shaking.
It happened so quickly, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you built it. But I mean, at one point, the numbers were big. Was it 600 million?
Yeah, in 2007, we turned over close to 600 million. Yeah. By that point, HBOS had invested 42 million in equity for 22%. Okay. They were also giving me very extensive, facilities. We employed about 130 people. Yeah. We had an office in Farnborough, office in London, big office in Dubai. I also had a company called Veritas Investments that was a JV with the bank that had a 500 million portfolio. I had a property company, a furniture company called Imagine Furnishings that furnished all of the units. That was turning over about 9 million a year. I personally owned about £50 million worth of property. Yeah. So it was an amazing growth. Yeah. And I take great pride in what we achieved, because my competition was the big boys, that had unlimited resources, and we took them on. And we were one of the biggest buyers of resi property in the UK.
Yeah. It's not like you came that from a background of doing it, did you? You came in and you had
Well,
the vision.
all because I sat on a plane and I was very annoyed that my Dubai deal had fallen apart.
Yeah, so you turned a negative situation into a...
Kind of. I mean, to be fair, Imagine probably invented the rental guarantee, which is still about today, but no one since the demise of Imagine has actually done it on the same scale.
No, I've used rental guarantees on some of our properties, but it's a struggle to find a company that you really can sort of stand behind, and it's a much smaller
so it was an amazing time.
Yeah, but 2007 is the telltale, because 2008 things for everybody.
Well, what was staggering, and my mistake from a personal perspective was everything I owned, and I was worth on paper a considerable amount of money. Everything I owned was in property, which was a mistake, because as I was becoming more successful, I should have diversified and bought stocks and shares or gold or anything. But every time I made money, I bought another property, thinking that was, the tap was never going to get turned off. And in 2008, what started it was obviously the demise of Lehman Brothers, and then it was the domino effect. And HBOS, it was written about many times, got into severe financial difficulties, to the extent that they would ring me occasionally, because obviously we were turning over a huge amount of money, but we were paying out a huge amount of money. And they rang me on a few occasions and said, Grant, you've got 100 grand's worth of payments going out today. And I'd say, yeah, fine. And they said, well, no, we can't pay them. And I'd say, well, why can't you pay them? And they said, well, we don't have the money.
That's terrifying.
That was terrifying. So this happened on 3 or 4 occasions. And at that point, it still didn't occur to me they would actually go out of business, because I was so reliant on them. And I distinctly remember being called in to see Peter Cummings, who was in charge of JVs, very powerful man, and, the top brass. And I sat at a table and they were effectively telling me that they were in a lot of trouble. And I've never seen bankers with the rabbit in the headlights before. They were frightened. And there was no plan B. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know what was going to happen to them. And at that point, I distinctly remember walking out of that meeting going, I'm in trouble. I'm in massive trouble. And then, of course, what happened is the property sector, the bottom fell out of it. Properties that were worth 100 grand were then worth 60,000. HBOS got shelved off to Lloyds. Lloyds had no interest whatsoever in any JVs that HBOS had done. They didn't understand them. So effectively, Imagine got closed down, Veritas got closed down. I lost all of my personal properties. And as a direct consequence of all of that, because of PGs, I went personally bankrupt in 2008. But what was shocking was the speak. So at one point, I was doing really well. Life was great. And 6 months later, it was all over, done, dusted, catastrophic.
Tell me where I'm interested in your mental health at that point. That's, there's an ego, there's a success feeling, and your just trajectory was, and then to just be decimated. Well, where did you go in your head?
Well, the big problem for me was I was quite high profile at the time because of my marriage to Anthea. I got blamed single-handedly in some newspapers for the demise of the property sector in the UK. So everything I was doing was in the newspapers. So it was embarrassing. And I always remember, I'll tell you a very anecdotal story very quickly. The worst day of everything that happened to me, I was at home. I went out in the car and Anthea rang me. She said, oh, there's a guy here with 2 Alsatians and he wants to see you and he's being quite aggressive. So I turned the car around and went home and I pulled up to my house and there was a guy there with 2 Alsatians on a lead. Fortunately, I didn't get out of the car. So I wound the window, can I help you? And he started hurling abuse at me, like words that I can't use on this program. And I what? Get out the car, get out the car, you, what. Fortunately, I didn't. And eventually, he threw some papers at me and he says, you're served. Okay, he was a service agent delivering papers, and it was a demand from a bank for 2 million, just add it to the list. So I got in the house, I rang my solicitor, and I said, look, I've just been served with these papers. The guy was incredibly aggressive, and my solicitor said, they can't do that, you know, they have to be polite, you know. And he said, I don't understand why he would do that, Grant. He said, don't worry about it, we'll deal with it on Monday. This was a Friday. On the Sunday morning, my brother rang me, and he said, have you seen the Mail on Sunday? And I said, no, why? He said, well, you're on the front page. And I said, I'm on the front page, why? So I obviously went to buy a paper. Bovey served with bankruptcy writ. Okay, so what had actually happened, and this is what made me feel so low, is that the service agent had done a deal with the Mail on Sunday. There was a photographer in the hedge taking pictures. They wanted me to hit him. That's what they were goading me. He was so repulsive, this guy. He wanted me to get out the car and actually hit him because that would make a fantastic picture. And I remember sitting at home thinking, what has my life become that I find myself in that situation?
Yeah, don't blame you.
Yeah. So it took me, clearly, when it all went wrong, it took me a couple of years to recover.
Well, what did you do? I mean, you know,
I'll tell you what I did. I got out of bed every day and I sat in front of my computer trying to work out my next step. And some days I would just sit there for 8 hours and do nothing, but I knew I had to get out of bed.
I like that.
I had to, because it was very tempting not to get out of bed.
Yeah.
But I had a responsibility. I've got 3 daughters. You know, I was still married, but it was incredible pressure. It wasn't just the pressure of losing a huge amount of money personally. It was the humiliation of being a failure in the eyes of the public.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very tough.
Yeah.
It was very tough.
No, I feel for you. So from that point and those 2 years, talk to me about what was next. Where did you come out from?
Well, I had no inclination to remain in property, to be honest. It left a very bad taste in my mouth. So I obviously had experience in television production. I'd done a few things in my life. So I got involved in other entities. I raised money for companies. I was involved in an app called Misty, raised a lot of money for that, raised a lot of money for a company called the Yummy Media Group. So I did bits and bobs, but always knew that when things were going well for me in property, I loved it. Loved being in property, and I was quite good at it. So I did various things, and then about 2 years ago, started getting involved in a few deals, just putting deals together and taking commissions.
Yep.
And then I started taking an interest in crypto about 18 months ago. Just as an entrepreneur, I wanted to understand how crypto worked.
Yeah.
So I started talking to people, got a basic understanding, and I'm by no means an expert, but I got a basic understanding. And I came up with this name of a company called Globium, and I wanted to integrate crypto with international residential real estate assets. Yeah. Because the thing is with crypto wealth, you may own £1 million worth of Bitcoin, but you can't really spend it anywhere. And you definitely can't spend it on property. So I wanted to create a conduit between crypto wealth, the Globium crypto coin, and international real estate.
So you came up with this all yourself?
Yeah. It was another fag packet. So I then started talking to blockchain developers literally throughout the world, and everyone I spoke to told me a different price, different way of doing it, a different amount of time. And in the end, I just didn't believe any of them.
No.
Until I was talking to a friend of mine who's a solicitor at Mishcon a guy called Mike Stubbs. And he said, oh, what are you doing now? And I said, I'm kind of doing this crypto thing. He said, well, you do realize we have a division called Mishcon X. That's our digital division, and they build blockchain. Anyway, I met a guy called Tom Grogan, very bright guy, who's the CEO of Mishcon X. Explained to him what I wanted to do, and the first time ever, I believed what I was being told. This guy writes speeches for Rishi Sunak about blockchain, very bright guy. So anyway, so I then signed a contract with Mishcon. We went through something called Discovery and Tokenomics, and the Globian business plan was born.
Awesome. And it's launched? It's launching?
No. So the Globian business plan is as follows. So Globium is launching a coin in probably November of this year.
Okay.
And you buy those coins for $500 each. What's really interesting is from the moment you buy it, we give you a 2% over American base rates yield on that coin. So at the moment, that would be 7%, okay? And that's paid into your Globian wallet every 6 months, okay? So the minute you buy it, you've got a 7% yield, which is probably 3 times what you'll get at a bank at the moment. So then what happens is we populate the Globian website with properties that we own, and those properties will be in London, New York, Chicago, Germany, wherever. You come onto the website and you say, oh, I'd like to buy this property here. To buy that property, you have to put down at least 5% in Globium coin that you can buy through various channels. We will also, though, accept other crypto coins to pay for that property. So you can pay in Bitcoin, Ethereum, there's probably 5 or 6 we'll take. You can then pay cash, you mortgage, which we will help. So it's Imagine Homes reimagined in the 21st century. But what we are doing is providing a conduit between crypto wealth and property assets.
I don't believe that's happening at the moment. I've had people talking to me about it.
People have tried,
yes,
and many have failed,
sure,
but we've come up with a way of doing it, which I can't tell you because I'd have to kill you. But it's very, very clever. So what happened is Mishcon were that taken by the business model, they have become an equity partner in the business, sure, which is the first time they've done that as Mishcon X. We've just raised an amount of money from a Singapore fund. We're about to raise some more and we're launching in October, but we are launching and selling $100 million of coins as the first release at the ICO. Yep. But then we're releasing 100 million every 12 months. Wow. So I've replaced HBOS with the Globium coin. It's very clever the way it works. And if it works, it'll make Imagine Homes look small.
I mean, that would be impressive. I mean, it's so current and it's so needed, which is why people have talked to me about the idea, the concept of just trying to link. But it's not. But
John, it's really complicated how to structure it. Mm. And I started on this journey about 16 months ago, and we've still got another 6 months to go.
Yeah. And
I've spent a lot of money getting from A to B. I've enjoyed it. I'm still an expert. I still don't understand some of the implications of crypto coins. Yeah. But one thing I can tell you is crypto is here to stay. It ain't going away. Okay, it will become more regulated, but it ain't going anywhere. But if Globium can become, on a global basis, the first company to create that conduit between property assets and cryptocurrency, yeah, we'll be first to market. And what's really interesting is if someone looks at it and goes, that's really clever, I know it's going to take them a year to catch me up.
I was just going to ask you that. Is there someone somewhere else that can come out of the...
We went through this thing called Discovery, where basically you analyse what other people are doing, yep, and to our knowledge, the answer is no.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's clever, but it is Imagine Homes because, you know, we buy the property, we rent it, we furnish it, we own it, and then we get Mr. Smith who wants to buy it, and we also give a rental guarantee, 6% for 2 years.
Okay.
So it is very similar.
Yeah, so you're modelling a concept that was working until
I know the Imagine Homes model works, and I know how to do it because I've already done it.
Yeah.
I've just taken a business model and moved it forward 20 years.
I can see that. What would you say is your greatest strength?
Perseverance.
Yeah, that's coming across strong.
People, I've been in situations where I've just persevered to the 9th degree and never give up. If you believe in something, just never give up. It's like when I was trying to get Imagine off the ground, I probably went to 9 banks. And to be honest, I think because I was married to Anthony at the time, most of those people just took meetings with me to talk to me about my wife. You know, there was no way they were going to lend me 12 million quid, but I kept going. Yeah. And then I eventually, you know, met Susan Geddes at HBOS, and she said yes. Yeah. You know, and but most people, after being turned down by 3 banks, would have probably given up.
Yeah. What about your greatest weakness?
Chocolate.
I love that. There's a lot of times in life where you've achieved success.
Yeah.
Sitting here now, what is your definition of success?
Do you know, it's changed a lot.
I thought it might.
Because of what I went through. I always thought success was a number, and actually it ain't a number. When I was creating Imagine Homes, I just wanted to hit a personal wealth of a certain number, and I probably on paper exceeded it. Did it make me incredibly happy? The reality is no. Did what happened to me change the way I thought about life? Categorically, yes. So success for me is I want people, respect is a big word for me. You know, I want people to respect me as a person and as a businessman. And if I happen to make money along the way, then that's a bit of a side issue now. So what's happened is my priorities have changed. Yeah. I want to be successful again on a big scale, but I'm not doing it for the money. The money's great, but that's not the primary driver. The primary driver is I felt so humiliated by what happened to me. And to be fair, my reputation within the property sector has remained intact because nobody blamed me for what went wrong. But I strive to be back at the table.
Yeah, I can tell. It's coming across strong. And thank you for being so open. You know, I've learned loads talking to you now, and I just best of luck with Globium. And you're innovative and striving to go to the moon with it. I hope you achieve it. So thank you.
Well, hopefully you can invite me back in a year's time. And we can have another chat, and we can talk about the fact that Globium's got 72 offices.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Thank you, Grant.
You're very welcome. Thank you.